Right, so we're discussing the annual general meeting today, and it's all about the shareholder. It's all about the shareholder. And more importantly, what is your role as a director and as a board in the whole process? General shareholder meetings are one of the most important annual events that has to deal with the direction of the company, appointment of directors, remuneration of directors, and a whole other items that are discussed at an AGM. It is important that you understand, clearly what your function at an AGM is. So I've got a couple of slides that I've prepared for us today. I'll go through them and feel free to ask a question, put up your hand, a comment, discuss, etc. There we go. So annual general meeting, also known as an annual shareholders meeting. So the two words can be used interchangeably. I'm going to use AGM in short for the context of this session, but essentially annual general meeting, annual shareholder meeting, the terms both apply. So we're going to focus on the AGM today, but the discussion also, or the points we're going to discuss are also applied to a general shareholder meeting, because during the course of the year, the board or shareholders can call for a shareholder meeting, which would then not necessarily be an annual shareholder meeting, won't be an AGM, but would be a shareholder meeting that is required for a specific topic, for a specific agenda. For an example, when COVID-19 pandemic started, a lot of organizations held shareholder meetings. They called shareholder meetings to discuss the state of the organization. The shareholders had to vote on specific matters and how to save the business, etc. So those weren't necessarily AGMs, but they were shareholder meetings. So some of the points we're going to discuss today also apply to a shareholder meeting, but although our focus would be the AGM. So what is an AGM? Well, simply put, it's a gathering for shareholders on an annual basis. That's really what it is. It's an opportunity for shareholders on an annual basis to come together and discuss matters surrounding the business on an annual basis. But for what purpose? And I think that is what is key for us as board members to understand what is the purpose of an AGM. And really two things are important. The two things stand out for me as the important aspects of an AGM. Number one, reporting. By who? By the board, by the directors. Essentially, an AGM allows the board members to report back to the shareholders on the performance of the organization, on the state of the organization currently, and what are the future plans the board has for the organization. So it's an opportunity for the board to report back to the shareholders. And that's one of the first and most important aspects of an annual general meeting. And it is very clear as well if you look at an annual statement. I think we've been through an annual statement, one of the sessions that we've had. And you'll see that a lot of it is reporting, right? The performance of the organization, the current state of the organization, and what the future plans are of the organization. And then number two is decision making. It's the shareholders' turn now to make decisions based on the information that has been given by the board of directors, based on the information and the state of the organization currently, and what the shareholders want or how they want the organization to be run. So the second most important aspect of an AGM is decision making. And if you see down the bottom there, I focus on two aspects: governance and direction. Why those two? Because governance in the sense of what type of board do the shareholders want? What type of directors the board want? Do the shareholders want, rather, sorry. What type of structure are they looking for? What type of restructuring are they looking for? And this speaks to governance. So it's an opportunity for shareholders to choose the type of governance that they want for the organization. What type of auditors, what type of the audit committee, remuneration, etc., etc. And then secondly, direction. Very important as well, because shareholders gives them an opportunity to decide on how and where the organization should go to, right? They'll decide on matters such as, should we expand into a different territory or not? Should we get debt to expand? The direction of the organization. Those two aspects, we're going to speak around those two as we go along. So, general, we're going to speak on three items. The two we've already spoken of, I mentioned, decision making and reporting. And then the first point is just general, the voting process, what the MOI says around AGMs, just the general understanding of an annual general meeting. Right, so on our general, and we'll start with the regulatory requirements of an AGM. And this then speaks to the Companies Act. So what does the Companies Act say around annual general meetings? Well, the first thing is public companies are required to hold AGMs, public companies. So that means as a private business, it's not a requirement. Not a requirement, but for a public entity, it is a requirement. And I would assume the reason is, there are so many shareholders who are not privy of the information of what's going on within the organization, as opposed to a private company. In a PTY, you probably have one shareholder, 2, 3, 4, 5 shareholders who are in most cases also the directors of the business and also the executive directors of the business. So they've got a decent understanding on a regular basis of what's going on in the organization. Shareholders, on the other hand, with a public entity, that's not the case. So therefore, the Companies Act requires there to be, on an annual basis, a shareholders meeting for a listed company. The first such meeting must take place within 18 months of the incorporation of the company, and thereafter the meeting must be held no more than 15 months after the previous meeting, or another period is determined upon application by the Companies Act. So essentially, from the date of incorporation of that listed company, of that public company, the first AGM must take place 18 months from that date, 18 months. And then thereafter, 15 months is the time frame that an organization has to host an AGM from the last time it held its AGM. So obviously, it's an annual basis. So you'd rather have it around the same time, be it's March, every time around March. But if there is some sort of delay, for example, COVID-19, the Companies Act does allow for an extra 3 months for you to host your AGM, unless you can make an application to the tribunal stating why you cannot. So here's a question for us, and I would like any of us to answer this. Who can attend a shareholders meeting? Who can attend the shareholders meeting? Anyone?
Shareholders?
Yeah, shareholders. Well.
Board members?
Board members? Fantastic. Anyone else? Can anyone else attend a shareholder meeting who's not a shareholder?
No.
Okay, there's a no. Is there anyone else with a yes? Or are we all saying no?
What about stakeholders?
It's a bit vague, because remember there are a lot of stakeholders. They can be defined in many different, an employee is a stakeholder. So let's be a bit more specific.
Executives?
Part of the board. But
I'm saying yes.
okay, all right. So as a general rule, no one other than a shareholder or a proxy holder of a shareholder has the right to attend the meeting. And then as well, other persons may be permitted to attend only if approved by the chairperson. So that second point, I'm going to speak on it just now, the proxy holder. I'll now move on to the third one, which states that other persons can be allowed to attend the AGM if given permission by the chairperson. So here you're looking at such individuals as potential investors. So I've heard of investors who want to invest in a company, might be invited to an AGM so that they get comfortable to see what's going on, to meet other shareholders, etc. Or you could have guest speakers, experts in certain topics. So if one of the agendas that the shareholders have to vote on is maybe a technical item, which they might need some sort of clarity or more information, then the board could invite an expert to speak on that matter. So that individual will be invited as well. So you can have individuals other than shareholders at the meeting, but that has to be decided by the chairperson. And most importantly, it has to be stated in the MOI. The memorandum of incorporation or the constitution or bylaws or etc. must dictate who and who cannot attend a shareholder meeting. That has to be in the MOI. But I'm going to go back now to the second point. A proxy holder of a shareholder has the right to attend a shareholder meeting. So I should have discussed that very quickly before we move on. So what is a proxy? A proxy and proxy voting. Proxy voting is a system that allows shareholders to participate in shareholder meetings and voting whilst not physically present. Many a times shareholders may choose not to attend a shareholders meeting, and through a proxy they can have a person in their stead attend and vote on their behalf. Proxy voting essentially gives a third party who may or may not be a shareholder the right to vote on a shareholder's behalf under the shareholder's instruction, of course. So essentially, we're saying that at a shareholders meeting, my brother, for example, who could be a shareholder of Investec, might give me as make me his proxy, allowing me to go to the shareholder meeting, participate on his behalf, speak on his behalf, and then ultimately vote on his behalf based on the instruction that is given. So proxy voting is an extremely crucial and important aspect of annual general meeting. And it is up to the board to make the rules around proxy voting. Who qualifies to be a proxy? What are the controls in place to make sure that proxies are scrutinized, identified, etc., etc.? It is the board's responsibility to put this in place, and more so to put it in place in the company's MOI, in the company's constitution, etc., etc., because it is a shareholder right for them to participate in the company's dealings, even though they can't be present. So in most cases, in some cases, the second bullet point, a board member can be a proxy for shareholder and vote according to shareholder instruction. Proxy voting can also be conducted online using secure portals. So proxy voting is an important aspect of an AGM and any other shareholders meeting that allows the shareholder to participate in the shareholder meeting, rather, even though them not being present. Is there any questions around the proxy voting and or the proxy him or herself?
Hi everyone. So I just wanted to know, let's say you find yourself you're a board member and you are incapacitated. Do you nominate a proxy beforehand, or is a proxy only nominated as and when you need one? That's what I wanted to ask.
Well, remember, proxies are for shareholders. In this instance, we're talking about the shareholder rights to be represented. So it's not necessarily for board members, unless the board member, him or herself, is a shareholder as well. So then, as a board member, if you can't attend the AGM, then you as a board member have the right to, as only for shareholder, you then also have the right to get a proxy for yourself. But here we're speaking more of the proxy for the shareholders.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk now about the AGM procedure. All right? So the first thing to understand about the procedure of an AGM or how it's conducted is there is no legal procedural requirements. There is no process that is detailed within, for example, the Companies Act, right? It's up to the board to determine the procedure, the process, the steps that are taken at the AGM, from arrival to attendance register, to verifying if that individual is an actual shareholder, to verifying what rights that shareholder has when it comes to voting. That procedure rests on the board. So you'll find that although the shareholders meeting is centered around shareholders, the functionality of it is the board's responsibility. The board plans everything. The board structures everything. You as a director, that is one of your requirements. And you're facilitating this whole process so that shareholders can come into an environment where everything is set, efficient, competent, so that they can hear from you how the business is performing, and secondly, then they could vote on how the organization should go forward. So this then must be in the MOI, or the Constitution, company bylaws, articles of association, whatever document the entity is using for its laws, its rules. It must be clearly stated what are the procedures of the AGM, what are the procedures going for the shareholder when it arrives, the voting procedure, etc. Then move on to timing. Timing is also a crucial aspect of the AGM. When to stage an AGM, right? So mostly you'd want to have the AGM on an annual basis, and the month falling on the similar month on a regular basis, so that it's kind of stuck in the shareholder's mind and the board's mind for planning purposes, that an AGM is at a specific time of the year. So if it's February, make sure it's always February. But remember, the Companies Act does allow for a 3-month time delay before you can host the AGM. And then venue also becomes important. Where to host an AGM? Physical type AGMs, you got to get a conference, a venue that is big enough to host all the shareholders. I would like to believe that at this specific time, COVID-19 time, I would like to believe most, if not all, AGMs are being hosted online, because even though there is COVID-19, that does not stop the requirement to have AGM and or shareholder meetings. And specifically this time, where we've got resources such like as these online, where we could jump online, hear what the chairperson of the board is saying, vote, etc., etc. Any questions as well? Comments, etc.?
Hi, Munya. Is it not viable to have the AGM like 3 months after financials have been published?
Yes. Okay, I was going to get to the financials. And speak around when they should be sent. But remember, your financials are always sent at a specific time. So either way, they're going to somehow correlate with the AGM. So if your financials are always released in February, and you decide to have your AGM 3 months after that, that means your AGM is always in around April. That kind of will always have kind of like our that system. But in terms of financials, yeah, you could release your financials and give your shareholders a 3-month period to assess them. The Companies Act does speak around the time frame of giving information to shareholders before an AGM so that they can be informed and attend the AGM with understanding. All right, so let's move on now to notice for shareholder meeting. And I guess this is what you were just asking just now, just that started discussing. The company must deliver a notice of each shareholders meeting in the prescribed manner and form to all the shareholders of the company as of the record date for the meeting at least 15 days before the meeting is to begin. In the case of a public company or a non-profit company that has voting members, or 10 business days before the meeting is to begin in any other case. So essentially, the Companies Act stating you must give, in the case of a public company or profit company that has voting members, at least 15 days before the shareholders meeting. You must give them that type of notice. And yeah, they're speaking around generally an AGM or just a normal shareholder meeting that could be called for whatever reason. So yeah, they're not speaking about the financials as per se, they're speaking of when to notify shareholders that they will be and 15 days and for 10 days. And the last point, the company's MOI may provide for longer minimum notice periods than required. So it's not giving an option to decrease the number of minimum days, it's saying you can have longer. So most businesses and organizations give 21 business days beforehand notification, or even 30 days beforehand, so that your shareholders can have a time to go over the agenda, understand what coming to vote for, consult, maybe they need to consult with their lawyers, their bankers, wherever it is, so that when they arrive at the AGM or the shareholders meeting, they can make an informed decision. A notice of a shareholders meeting must be in writing and must include the date, time, and place of the meeting, and the record date of the meeting, the general purpose of the meeting, and any specific purpose contemplated in Section 6. So key there is the general purpose of the meeting. That is important. I, as a shareholder, must clearly understand why are we meeting for? What are we meeting for? So the purpose of it, specific to, is there going to be voting? What is we voting for? Do I qualify for voting for that item, specific item? Because again, remember, there are different classes of shares that shareholders hold, which each give them different voting rights on different voting items. So to me as a shareholder, it must be clear that whatever is to be discussed and voted on, do I have the right to vote for it? If I don't, I might not decide to attend the shareholder meeting because that's perfect. Point C, a copy of any proposed resolution of which the company has received notice and which is to be considered at the meeting, and notice of the percentage of voting rights that will be required for the resolution. That's what I was alluding to, that I must understand specifically what is needed, what are we voting for, and am I going to be able to participate in that? So in the case of an annual general meeting of a company, a summarized form of the financial statements to be presented and directions of obtaining a copy. So second point there, the second last one, the summarized form of the financial statements. So the time frame though of when a company should issue out those financial statements to the company, that then is up to the organization to determine, or the Companies Act is stating that it must be given beforehand, the financials, so that when I come to the shareholder meeting, I already had a good look at the financial statement. So the 3 months you spoke of, I guess that's good practice. That's good practice or best practices. But any organization might determine different period before the AGM. And directions for obtaining a copy of the complete annual financial statement for the prescribed financial year, which is obviously always online. A reasonably prominent statement that a shareholder is entitled to attend and vote at the meeting is entitled to appoint a proxy to attend, participate in, and vote at the meeting the place for shareholder, or 2 or more proxies, etc., etc. So again, emphasizing that proxy, that the shareholder has the right to have a proxy. And then attendance at shareholder meetings. Before any person may attend or participate in a shareholders meeting, that person must present reasonable, satisfactory identification. And again, that's up to you, the board, to determine what requirements must every shareholder have for them to be given access into the AGM and to vote on specific matters. That's a system you must create as a board, an efficient system that doesn't take too long, that works well, etc., etc. The person presiding at the meeting must be reasonably satisfied that the right of that person to participate and vote, either as a shareholder or as a proxy of a shareholder, has been reasonably verified. So again, they're speaking to the importance of that verification system, which again, the board, the directors must determine. And then electronic share, any questions thus far before we move on? Any questions?
Hello, Munya. How many
Yes.
proxies can a shareholder carry to the meeting?
1. So remember, you're not carrying a proxy to the meeting. You having a proxy meaning you are not able to attend the meeting. So essentially, you have given someone else the right to be at the shareholder meeting on your behalf. And
Yes.
you're only using 1 person. Yeah, 1 person.
Okay, so
Yeah,
2 shareholders cannot give the same person the proxy.
Oh, that was a question. I've
Yes,
seen it the
that
other way
was the
around.
question.
That was a question. No, you can't do that. A proxy can represent 2 or more. I mean, in most instances, the chairperson or the board itself is usually used as a proxy. So me as a shareholder, I can appoint the board to be my proxy. So you'll find that in AGM or any shareholder meeting, the board literally is representing 50% of shareholders. And each shareholder has instructed the board to vote on a specific matter in accordance to how they want the vote to go. So a proxy can represent quite a number of shareholders. This then has to be a good, efficient system to determine that. That again falls on the board. So if we identify that Munya is coming to a shareholder meeting and literally is representing 10 shareholders, and each of them have instructed him to vote in a specific manner, how do we make sure that Munya is going to do the right thing for the shareholders? What controls are we putting in place as the board? That's where it becomes important that the board has a good system that is in the MOI, right? Electronic shareholder meetings, unless prohibited. So there is an option for you as a board to prohibit electronic shareholder meetings. Unless prohibited by MOI, the company may provide a shareholders meeting to be conducted entirely by electronic communication. So essentially, it's the entire system, the entire shareholder meeting online. So we're not even having the option of a physical type AGM. The MOI must state that. Or 1 or more shareholders or proxies for shareholders to participate by electronic communication in all or part of a shareholders meeting that is being held in person, so long as the electronic communication deployed ordinarily enables all persons to participate. So essentially saying the system that we use for the AGM or shareholder meeting must be of good standard that allows all of us to participate. Meeting quorum and adjournment. A shareholders meeting may not begin until sufficient persons are present at the meeting to exercise in aggregate at least 25% of all the voting rights that are entitled to be exercised in respect of at least 1 matter to be decided at the meeting. So whatever agendas we have, if we don't have 25% of individuals that can vote for that specific item, then the meeting will not begin. In the actual fact, you can actually cancel the meeting That means you can have 100 shareholders at the meeting, but out of those 100, only 10, for an example, can vote for a specific item, of which those 10 do not amount to at least 25% of the people entitled to vote for that specific topic. Therefore, we can't have the meeting. Similarly to point B, a matter to be decided at the meeting may not begin to be considered unless sufficient persons are present at the meeting to exercise in aggregate at least 25% of all the voting rights that are entitled to be exercised on the matter at the time the matter is called on the agenda. So we pass, let's say, point A, we have enough people to start the shareholder meeting. Now we're dealing with the specific voting items. If it so happens that on a specific matter, let's say we're deciding on director remuneration, and out of that, there are certain directors that have the right to vote for director remuneration. If out of those individuals that are present, we can vote for that specific motion, if there isn't at least 25% of those number of votes, then that agenda item will not be discussed. And then finally, the company's MOI may specify a lower or higher percentage in place of the 25% required. So you can decide as the board to increase that 25% to 50%, or you may decide to decrease it to 10%. That is up to you. Does that make sense? Any questions around the quorum? Okay, just so happy. All right, let's move on now to running off the AGM. Is that a question?
Yeah, Munia, I wanted to just comment on the solvency and liquidity test. I just wanted to know, to understand within that context, does the Company Act specify a certain number of voting rights relating to any financial related decisions that the board makes?
Okay, so remember this, the solvency and liquidity test, that's the board function, and that's a board process that the shareholders are not involved in. And so what essentially is happening is the board, before it distributes dividends or allocates a large sum of money to expansion, bonuses, whatever it is, they must first undergo a solvency and liquidity test to determine whether the organization will have enough funds for the next 12 months to for its debt and general operations in place. So that's a board function, not a shareholder function. Once we're at the shareholder meeting, the board should have already done the solvency and liquidity test.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on to the running of the AGM? Precious?
In the example that you gave where you say maybe on a voting item there are directors or members in the meeting that are conflicted, is that a common practice to manage that arising conflict of interest by deciding on the voting quorum?
No. When it comes to quorum, there's no conflict of interest that does not come to doesn't play any part in it. A quorum is purely who has the right to vote on a matter, regardless of if any conflict will arise. A shareholder right to vote it's one of those that is standard, it's there, we can't move it regardless of conflict of interest. So quorum is just specifically saying the chairperson is checking, do we have enough people to vote for this specific matter, regardless of their conflict.
Okay.
Okay, so let's now look at the running of the AGM, So essentially what we see here on the slide is kind of typically what you'd find, in most annual general meetings. You could have more agenda items, you could have less than, but you're looking at, you get here, you arrive, your opening remarks, welcome, and that is by the chairperson. Usually the chairperson is the MC, if I can use that term, that word, of the chairperson. They essentially are in charge to ensure that the meeting is going according to plan, time, agenda, etc. They're chairing the chair of the meeting. Then you got apologies, minutes of previous AGM, matters arising from reporting, appointment of auditors, election of directors, motions to be put to the AGM, any other business, and then closing remarks. Okay, so let's look at each of those in a bit more detail briefly, then we can have questions, just have an open discussion about it before we close at 1:30. So apologies. So after the chairperson has spoken around as a welcome, shareholders, welcome, etc., apologies from individuals who have been unable to attend are read out and recorded. So some shareholders will send letters of apology stating they will not be able to attend. Then the chairperson will read out those individuals that are not being able to attend, as well as if it's a board member that's not able to attend the AGM for whatever reason, they can call that out. So that's generally general practice around apologies. And then you got minutes. The minutes of the previous AGM should be formally adopted by a proposer and a seconder whose name should be recorded. So I'll give the definition of a proposer and seconder in a minute, just now. I just want to finish the slide, but essentially the minutes of the previous shareholder minutes must be read out, must be formally adopted into the company records at the next general meeting, AGM. Then matters arising from the minutes, should be taken in the order they appear. So essentially, as we're going through the minutes, there are certain items that we discussed or decided on at the previous AGM, and the chairperson then would say, out of those discussions, this is what we've done. So, for an example, let's say in the previous AGM, the shareholders voted to amend the MOI, to change certain rules around voting, or the percentage of votes needed to pass an ordinary resolution and a special resolution. What would happen in that instance is the chairperson, whilst going through the minutes, would identify that that was one of the decisions that was made, and then might then say, based on that decision, we have amended the MOI, been taken to CIPC, it's now a legal document, etc. So that's kind of like the matters arising from the minutes as they're being read out, and there should be kind of like a chronological order towards. I see your question, Irene. We'll touch on it just now. So let's talk about what a proposer and a seconder is, which is our second point there. You see, the minutes of the previous AGM should be formally adopted by a proposer and a seconder. So a proposer essentially is the person who formally suggests a plan, course of action, nomination of someone, etc., at a meeting for people to vote on. So what you'll find is in board meetings and in shareholder meetings, there's a certain decorum that is usually used at these type of events. And one of those is a proposer and the seconder. Seconder being someone who endorses a motion or petition as a necessary preliminary to a discussion or vote. So for an example, if you remember when we were when we were kids in school and they were just trying to pick the classroom monitor, right, the class prefect, and the teacher would require someone else to nominate someone else, right? So you couldn't nominate yourself, someone else had to propose your name. And essentially that's the same kind of system here, where if there's an agenda to be spoken of, or if there's a course of action, or if there's a plan to be put forward, someone stands up and proposes an item, an agenda, or nominates someone else. Then a second is essentially someone who's endorsing that motion or petition, right? So they would then say, I second that. I'm agreeing with that, which then would allow that I've suggested to have a formal discussion or vote. So these are some of the items that you can find in some shareholder meetings, some board meetings. These are some of the kind of like the old school type of way of holding these meetings. Remember, the whole idea of board meetings, shareholders, really came from Britain, right? The English, and you know how the English are with their formality. I mean, I'm sure we've seen them in the English Parliament. Even though it's loud and shouting and everything, there's still some sort of a structure to it. There's still a system that they use, and some boards and shareholders still use some of those processes to conduct their meeting. Obviously, now in South Africa and all around the world, we've kind of like customized how we would want to conduct a board meeting or shareholder meeting. And really, it boils down to you, the board, to decide what type of rules you want to have for there to be such items as proposed and seconded. You don't have to have it. You have it if you want. It should be in your company's MOI. Any questions?
Yes, Munya, it's Coretta here.
Yes, go ahead.
So if you don't have a seconder, does it mean then you cannot proceed with whatever course of action that has been suggested?
Yes, yes. Because remember, a seconder is someone who is endorsing that has been proposed. So this then should be in your MOI. So someone proposes it, then the seconder would say, aye, you know, then that will trigger it to be discussed. Because remember, a seconder is someone who is a necessary preliminary to a discussion or vote.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, go on.
That's the first question. The second question is with regards to going through the minutes. There's always, as you say, matters arising. But what I find is that within the matters arising, you find that there's actually action items that would still be addressed on that particular day. So you find that as the chairperson, as you're going through all the minutes, because you still need to approve the minutes, but as you're going through each and every page of the minutes, there are matters arising that still need to be addressed that can actually, that I find derails the meeting now. You focus now on matters arising and, you know, you don't necessarily go back to, you can say approve the minutes after. So I get a bit confused in terms of, you know, the action items, when you go through the minutes, the action items that you find as you go through the matters arising as to when should they be actually addressed? Should they be addressed as you go through the minutes and approving the minutes, or is there a separate time that you have to allocate to action items that are emanating from the matters arising?
Yes, and that's up to the chairperson. So a clever chairperson would be aware of that and then might make the decision to put any matters arising that are also part of action items, kind of put them together at the end of reading the minutes. So that's really up to the chairperson, because you're very right in the sense that, you know, we could all of a sudden are now focusing on the matters arising, and it derailed the structure that had been set, the agenda that had been set by the chairperson. The chairperson then has to be aware of it and then make a strategic decision on how to approach the minutes, how to approach each agenda item so that the meeting is effective, competent, smooth, and everything that's on the agenda is discussed. Okay. All right, so let's move on now. So these are kind of like your, you know, we start apologies, minutes, matters arising. Then it goes into reporting. This is part of one of the crucial aspects and elements of the AGM. And what are we reporting? It's the presentation of the director's report. Essentially, it's how the business is going, what's been happening, what is the state of the organization, performance of the organization. And this is the same report that you find in an annual statement. If you were to download an Investec annual statement, you'll find somewhere at the top a director's report. This is like the exact same report that is presented at the shareholders meeting by the directors. Similarly, the presentation of the audit committee reports, right? So the audit committee is reporting as well against the shareholders on the state of the organization, financial, etc., etc. And again, this is the same audit committee report that you would find in an annual statement, right, after your director's report, etc. So you see the theme of it is the board now giving feedback to the shareholders of the state of the organization, what happened in the organization, what are the plans for the organization. Then there's a presentation of the audited financial statements. Usually you find the CFO, even the CEO or CEO could present on the finances of the organization, profit, loss, balance sheet, etc., etc. And then any general feedback by the board to shareholders. Now, this reporting can be structured, and any one of the board members can be given the responsibility by the chairperson to be the one to speak on any of these matters. So don't find it rare that you might be asked to present on one of these items, even though you're not an executive director. Because remember, anything you're presenting on behalf of the board. So it is common that any director, be it independent, non-exec, exec would report or present any of these items. Any questions? Right, let's move on. And then decision making. And this is the one when the shareholders get an opportunity to make certain decisions on the organization and how they want the organization to proceed, to be directed, to be controlled, to be governed for the next 12 months. And I think what's important for you to understand that these decisions are, most of them are annual decisions that are made on a regular basis. Obviously, others have an impact on the organization long term, but most of them are reoccurring type decisions, such as election of directors or reappointment of directors, rather. So you'll find that there are directors that are not the current directors, but according to the MOI and according to the Companies Act, these directors must be reappointed. So shareholders will vote to either re-elect directors or not to re-elect the directors. Again, appointment of the audit committee, very important. The Companies Act makes it clear that it is the shareholders that vote to appoint the audit committee. It's not the board. So in a normal committee, such as the risk committee, it is us, the board members, who would decide who will sit in the risk committee or the social and ethics committee, whatever the committee. But when it comes to the audit committee, the Companies Act has made it clear that it is the shareholders who make that decision, meaning they're the ones that decide who sits in the audit committee out of the directors that they have appointed. So if they want to put someone whom they know who is upstanding, competent, etc., and will ensure that the finances of the organization are going to be handled well, they put that individual. Or another case, if they know that there's someone on the board who will turn a blind eye, right? If that's what their agenda is, so be it. But the point is, it is the shareholders who appoint audit committee members, which is very different from all the other committees that are selected and chosen by the board. Okay, and then the next point is our appointment of the auditors themselves. Remember, we have said that the auditors are appointed by the shareholders, but it is the board through the audit committee that vets which auditors to present to the board and say, we have nominated this organization, PwC, to be the auditors of the organization. And the shareholders will vote to appoint the auditors for the next annual year. Again, similar to remuneration of directors, how much should the execs, the non-execs, the independent directors be remunerated? The shareholders will vote on that. And then motions to be put to the AGM, such as amendments to the MOI, loans from shareholders, restructuring, etc., etc. All these other items will be voted at the end of general meeting and will be classified either as an ordinary resolution or special resolution. Ordinary resolution requiring a set amount, usually 50%, but each MOI can determine minimum or maximum 50%, more than 50% or less than 50%, and a special resolution, the Companies Act speaks of 75% for it to be passed, but the MOI can have a higher threshold or lower threshold. That's up to the boards to make the decision, and then that is up to the shareholders to vote for that motion to either be passed or not. Any question around the voting on the items that the shareholders vote on? This is just a common list, but there can be so many more items other than these. Tebogo?
Okay. Yes, I want to understand that the shareholders, they are the ones like who nominate who should serve in the audit committees and so forth. I'm wondering, how does this happen? So there won't be like an advert and the credentials that are required, but at the meeting then they'll just indicate so and so and so, and then how does this get finalized? I'm trying to work out in my mind because I never said in the board. I mean those shareholders meeting where the audit committees are.
I know they'll be given information beforehand. If Munya has been, because remember there's the nominations committee on the board, and the nominations committee's responsibility is to nominate directors for the board and to nominate even personnel to sit in the audit committee. So beforehand, shareholders would have been given within their board pack, shareholder pack, if you want to call it that. And within that, one of the agendas is audit committee nominations, and the nominations committee would have listed a couple of candidates, right? There's Munya, there's Tebogo, there's Temsa, there's John and Jim. and then the shareholders will vote. So it's not one of those they just arrive and out of the blue they're thinking and they're voting. CVs would have been sent to them, profiles would have been sent to them. They can even request information. Shareholders would say, look, I want this person's entire history. Where did his first job, where was worked, has he been fired? They can request all that information so that they can make it informed.
Okay, thanks.
Right. And then after we've done all that voting and everything's been done, then there's matters that can arise, any matters raised by shareholders, regardless of whether advance notice of the topic was given. So the Companies Act has this stipulation in it that shareholders have the right to raise any matter, even if it hasn't been spoken of beforehand. There's been no planning towards it, there's been no discussion. Any shareholder can put any discussion on the table for it to be discussed. So that's a right of the shareholder. And what the chairperson now needs to do is determine whether this item discussion needs to be tabled for a later date, because there needs to be some research into it, some thought process around it, or they can determine that this is just a mundane item that can be discussed right now. So sometimes the shareholder may stand up and say, no, I don't like the fact that these shareholder meetings are always held in Johannesburg, yet I stay in Cape Town, right? That's a common item a shareholder may raise. And the chairperson right then can deal with that and say, you know what, we do have an online platform that can allow you to use this. Or, you know what, we do actually have quite a number of shareholders in Cape Town now. So we will propose to have annual general meetings, one in Cape Town 1 year, the next one in Johannesburg. So that's a decision the chairperson can make on the spot, whether to give more time to it or just deal with it at the moment. Then after that, it's closing remarks and the annual general meeting ends. But our last slide I want to just discuss is voting, the voting procedure, which is a crucial aspect of the shareholder meeting. Very crucial aspect. So each organization must determine a suitable voting procedure. That's again up to the board of directors to determine. Remember I said earlier on that even though an AGM is for the shareholders, centered around shareholders, the people, the group that makes it function, that makes it happen are the board of directors. That is the core function of the board. Setting the time, when, processes, voting, agenda, the board does that. So you as a board member and as a director, you must determine what is a suitable voting procedure that works for us. And it must be in the company's MOI. It must be in the MOI or constitution or articles of incorporation, whatever it is that the company has been incorporated with. It must clearly state that voting at a shareholder meeting is done in this procedure. Right? Then you get voting that's done in an open ballot. So it's time to vote for remuneration of directors, and there's an open ballot. Each individual can stand up, or there's a queue, they go in, and each manually tick yes, no, etc., etc. That's an open ballot. This is a secret ballot as well. And that is something then again that should be in the MOI and which shareholders can ask for. The shareholder might request that for this agenda, can it be a secret ballot? For whatever reason they want it. It's up to the chairperson to determine whether or not to have a secret ballot or not in respect to that specific voting item. But one item that is important is a scrutiny. A scrutiner. What is a scrutiner? This is an individual who at a shareholder meeting should be an independent individual and ensures that the voting process and the counting of the votes is done unbiasedly, properly, competently, and reflects the true outcome of what the shareholders desired. So it's called a scrutiny in many countries. In other countries, but I'm sure I've heard of what's called master ballot, I think that's the term. But essentially, all is an individual that is counting the votes and making sure the voting is going properly. So what we advise from a governance perspective is that the board should not be the one that counts the ballots, should not be the one that counts the votes. Because you don't want a situation in the future where the shareholders can accuse the board of being unbiased or rigging the votes in favor of certain shareholders and in favor of certain direction they want the business to go. So what is wise is for the board to separate itself from the voting itself and the counting of the votes. And the easiest way to do that, which most organizations do, is to hire an independent scrutiner or master ballot or whatever the term is used, so that individual is in charge of the entire voting process and making sure, and and assuring the shareholders that there hasn't been any colluding within the voting system. And then finally, voting can also be done on apps. So a lot of companies, even when they're at the shareholder meeting itself, voting can be done on the app. So when it's time to vote on a specific agenda, they just open the app and it's time to vote for that specific item. They click yes or no, submit. And a lot of companies are moving towards that system and move away from the manual paper ballot system. And finally, you can vote online, as I've said, through proxy, or be it you're not at the meeting, jump online, vote. Obviously, the company must have a secure system that allows voting to be done prudently. And that is it. So let's just open up for questions. I think we've got another 8 minutes. That's some questions. And then we shall close. Questions, comments, etc. Tembi, you got your hand up.
Hello, Munya.
Hi, Tembi.
I had raised a hand when you were talking about the nomination of the auditors, the appointment of auditors. But I just wanted to ask a question because where you have separated the person that audits and the person that prepares financial statement, can the board itself appoint an accountant except the auditor?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. The board, when we're talking about the management of accounts and so forth, the board can appoint an accountant to help it with the financials. The auditor, that's the shareholder.
Okay, thank you. Or auditor is the shareholder.
So what's important is most regulatory bodies around the world, they try to separate the function of an auditor and an accountant. So PwC, it's either you are auditor or you are accountant. Because you run a system where PwC is our accountant and our auditor.
Yes.
Which, it's having some places. And PwC, would say, oh, no, but two different people that are heading their accounts, right? So there should be that separation of you either accountant or you are our auditor.
Thank
Right?
you.
No problem. Atlamela, your hand is up.
Hi, Munya. I just have a quick question. So I remember a few years ago when Anheuser-Busch acquired SAB Miller, it was a hostile takeover. Now, in an instant like that, what normally happens? Is it like when the acquiring company goes and makes an offer to shareholders and the board is in disagreement, and how is it normally resolved? It's just something I've always wondered how it happens, but it never was quite explained to me.
Yes. That's usually the case is the board is not in favor of the takeover, and a hostile takeover would be to go direct to the shareholders and offer shareholders a certain amount per share for the company. So, they probably went to the board, and the board said, no, we don't want to sell the business. Right? This is not in the business organization, etc. Even though the board must take that to shareholders. What you find then is the acquirer will go straight to shareholders. Buy majority stock once you bought majority stock, and this is obviously the risk of being a listed entity. Your stock is being traded on the public market, therefore anyone's taking. I mean, if I had $1 trillion, I could literally walk into any stock exchange and just offer shareholders a premium to buy their shares. And there's nothing the board can do about it because the shareholder I can just sell to whoever I want. So that's one of the risks of being a listed entity. And that's how a hostile takeover happens, where the acquirer goes direct to the shareholders or offers such a premium on the stock that the shareholder says, I'm going to sell it, and that's how it's done. Anyone else? Any other question?
And other stakeholders don't really have much of a say. It's the shareholders ultimately who have a say in that.
Yeah, definitely. Stakeholders, all they can do is watch and hope, either it's sold or not, depending on where their interest lies. But there's really nothing other stakeholders like employees, buyers, sellers, etc. can do. Nothing. Let's have a question from Precious.
Thanks, Munya. In the MPO setup, is it common practice to have beneficiaries and donors in shareholder meetings, or is that also the discretion of the directors?
No, remember in an NPO, you're not going to have, there are no shareholders in an NPO, remember? A non-profit organization, in its nature, it's a structured entity that has no shareholding. It's literally member run for the initiative, whatever that initiative is, you have no shareholder. So there would be no shareholder meeting or AGM. Unless what you can have is a member meeting, an annual members meeting. So where all the members that are involved, that are part of the NPO, even the extended members, the beneficiary, they can be part of that annual meeting. And really it's the NPO giving feedback to those individuals who are the beneficiary of the cause, what's the state of the organization, etc., but no shareholder.
Okay, thanks for that. And I guess it will also need to be governed through an MOI.
Yes. If anything that happens in a company, board-related, shareholder-related, NPO-related, must be in the MOI or whatever other documents the company sets out as bylaws, articles, constitution, etc.
Thanks.
All right, Irene, you've got a question? Or is it the question you wrote here? What if we have auditors?
Yes, the one that I wrote. I want to know, is it compulsory that you must appoint the auditors every year, even if we have it?
Yeah, so what you do is you have to reappoint them. So from a public company, it is a requirement that they are reappointed. So it's really, in most cases, it's kind of like just a formality, right? It's a reappointment. So the board would nominate or would ask the shareholders just to reappoint, for example, Deloitte. So it's not really for removing the auditor, we're just reappointing. Same instance with the director, it's a reappointment, but the process has to be done that they are re-elected on an annual basis, directors and auditors. And this is from a public company. A private business, you don't have to do that. A private business, you can have the auditor for 5 years, 10 years, and not have to reappoint them on an annual basis. If you want to do that, that's good practice. Reappoint your auditor on an annual basis as a private business, but it's not mandatory by law. Okay, well, hand up by Sarah.
Yes, thanks, Munya. I just want to take that same question that I think it was Precious that she asked with regards to NPOs, and ask it, how does that apply with CFIs? Because if I understand your answer to her question, it was with NPOs, for example, because you don't have shareholders, you've got members, so you might have a members meeting. But with CFIs, because in my understanding, you do have shareholders, so would that require an AGM on a CFI?
Yeah, if you've got shareholders there, if there are shareholders, go ahead, have an AGM. But remember, if it's not required by law, you don't have to have one, because according to the Companies Act, only public companies are by law required to have an AGM. Then that means it's up to you if you want to have a shareholders meeting for your organization, such as that organization, PTY, CFI, etc. It's up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's 1:30, right on the dot. I think we've got, I don't know if there's any other question. I think we've covered most of the questions we had, and I managed to cover everything that I want to cover in our slide. So thank you so much for the session. Thank you for attending the session. We shall load this